Hello there, gentle wanderers through time, and welcome back to another peaceful journey into the hidden corners of history. I'm so grateful you've chosen to join me once again for what has become our shared exploration of the remarkable people who shaped our world. If you've been traveling with us through these quiet hours, you'll remember our recent adventures. Walking the marble streets of ancient Pompeii with Marcus the baker as he lived his final day, unaware of the mountain's awakening fury, and sailing the northern seas with the fierce and resourceful Viking women whose true stories Hollywood never tells. Tonight, we continue our quest to uncover the real people behind the myths as we venture into the American West. Before we saddle up for our ride across the Great Plains and into the honest heart of the frontier, I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Whether this is your first journey with us, or you've become a regular companion on these peaceful expeditions through time, please drop a comment and let me know what draws you to these stories of courage, determination, and the quiet heroism found in everyday work. And if you find comfort in these historical journeys, if they help you drift toward peaceful sleep or simply provide a respite from the modern world, that subscribe button helps us create more of these gentle adventures through time. Your support allows us to keep uncovering the fascinating truths that lie beneath the surface of popular history. Tonight, we're going to ride far beyond the Hollywood myths and discover the remarkable truth about America's cowboys. Not the gunslinging heroes of silver screens who never seem to dirty their hands with actual work, but the hardworking men and women who built an entire industry on horseback. Like the Viking women who commanded merchant ships and managed complex households, or the citizens of Pompeii who created prosperity through skill and determination. These were people who understood that real achievement comes not from dramatic gestures, but from mastering the demanding work that others couldn't or wouldn't do. The Cowboys we'll meet tonight understood that the real West was won not with blazing six-shooters, but with patience, skill, and the kind of quiet courage that gets you through 18-hour days in the saddle under an endless sky. They knew, just as Astrid knew while managing her Norse household, or Marcus knew while baking bread in ancient Pompeii, that true success comes from competence, integrity, and the willingness to do difficult work well. Popular culture has given us cowboys who spend their time in saloon shootouts and dramatic showdowns at high noon, just as it's given us Vikings who exist only to raid and pillage, or ancient Romans who do nothing but feast and fight gladiators. But the reality, as we've discovered in our previous journeys, was always far more complex, challenging, and inspiring than any Hollywood fantasy. So let the stresses of the modern world fade away as we ride west to a time when the horizon stretched endlessly in all directions, when a person's word was their bond, and when men and women of every background could carve out their own piece of the American dream under the vast canopy of prairie sky. Close your eyes if you wish, and let your imagination carry you to a world of rolling grasslands, thundering herds, and communities where a person's worth was measured not by their past, but by their willingness to work hard and treat others with respect. Tonight, we'll discover that the American cowboy, like the Viking merchant women and the industrious citizens of Pompeii, represent something far more valuable than any myth. They represent the human capacity to build something meaningful through honest work, mutual respect, and the courage to face each day's challenges with determination and skill. The first pale light of a Texas dawn barely penetrates the horizon when Samuel "Sam" Rodriguez stirs in his bedroll. The morning star still bright in the deep purple sky above the XIT ranch. At 26, Sam has spent the last 8 years working cattle across Texas, New Mexico, and Kansas. his weathered hands and sun-darkened face telling the story of countless days under the relentless prairie sun. The chuck wagon sits silent in the pre-dawn darkness, Cookie's fire banked low with glowing coals that will soon roar back to life for the morning meal. Around Sam, 12 other cowboys sleep wrapped in their bedrolls, their forms barely visible in the starlight. The air carries the scent of prairie grass, wood smoke, and the ever-present smell of cattle that defines the cowboy's world. Sam rises quietly, his movements practiced from years of early mornings. His gear lies exactly where he placed it the night before. Boots pulled off, but within arm's reach. Hat positioned to shield his bedroll from dew. Gun belt coiled nearby not for dramatic shootouts, but for the very real dangers of rattlesnakes, coyotes, and the occasional rustler. The remuda, the horse is kept for the outfit's use, shifts restlessly in the pre-dawn quiet, their forms dark shadows against the lighter grass. Sam's mount for today, a steady sorrel gelding named Copper, raises his head at his rider's approach, ears pricked forward in recognition. The relationship between cowboy and horse represents far more than simple partnership. It's a bond of mutual trust that can mean the difference between life and death on the open range. As Sam checks his gear with the methodical attention that keeps men alive in dangerous country, the sound of Cookie stirring the fire to life signals the beginning of another day. Cookie, whose real name is Chester Williams but whom no one has called anything but Cookie for the past 15 years, begins the ritual that marks the start of every day on the trail. Coffee strong enough to float a horseshoe and breakfast hearty enough to sustain men who will spend the next 12 to 14 hours in the saddle. "Morning, Sam," Cookie calls softly, mindful of the sleeping cowboys. "Coffee's on, and I've got biscuits in the Dutch oven. Figure we'll be moving the herd toward Willow Creek today." Sam nods, accepting the tin cup of coffee that Cookie offers. The brew is hot, black, and bitter, but it carries the caffeine that will help him stay alert during the long day ahead. Around them, the other cowboys begin to stir, as the smell of coffee and the quiet sounds of morning preparation signal that another day's work is about to begin. The XIT Ranch stretches across 3 million acres of Texas Panhandle, making it one of the largest ranching operations in the world. But size means nothing without the skilled horsemen who can manage the vast herds that graze these endless grasslands. Sam and his fellow cowboys represent the human machinery that makes this enormous enterprise possible. Skilled laborers whose expertise with horse and rope transforms wild cattle into marketable beef. As dawn gradually brightens the eastern sky, painting the endless grassland in shades of gold and amber, the true nature of cowboy work begins to reveal itself. This is not the romanticized version portrayed in dime novels and later Hollywood films, but the hard, skilled labor of professional stockmen whose competence determines the success or failure of massive business enterprises. Sam saddles Copper with movements born of long practice, checking each piece of gear with the attention to detail that years of experience have taught him is essential. The saddle, crafted by a master saddle maker in Fort Worth, represents both a significant investment, costing more than most men earn in 2 months, and an essential tool whose quality directly affects his ability to do his job effectively. The other cowboys go through their own morning preparations with similar care. There's Miguel Santos, a vaquero whose family has been working cattle in Texas since before it was part of the United States. His skills with a lariat legendary among the outfit. Beside him, Jake Thompson, a former slave from Louisiana, whose expertise with horses has earned him the respect of every man on the crew. adjusts his horse's bridle with the gentle confidence that marks a true horseman. The diversity of the cowboy crews reflects the reality of frontier labor. Roughly 1 in 4 cowboys was African American, while another significant percentage were Mexican vaqueros, whose families had been working cattle for generations. The demanding nature of range work created a meritocracy, where skill mattered more than background, and competence earned respect, regardless of a man's origins. "Boys, we've got about 800 heads scattered between here and Willow Creek," announces Tom Bradley, the trail boss whose 20 years of experience managing cattle drives has earned him the trust of ranch owners throughout Texas. "The grass is good, but we need to keep them moving toward better water. Sam, take Miguel and Jake and work the north side. Rest of you, spread out along the south." The work that follows demonstrates the sophisticated skills that real cowboys had to master. Managing cattle requires intimate knowledge of animal behavior, understanding of terrain and weather patterns, expertise in horsemanship that goes far beyond simple riding, and the ability to work as part of a coordinated team across vast distances. Sam and his partners spread out across the rolling grassland, their horses picking their way carefully through prairie dog holes and scattered rocks that could cripple an unwary mount. The cattle, a mix of longhorns whose ancestors were brought to Texas by Spanish colonists and newer breeds introduced by American ranchers, graze peacefully in the morning coolness. But Sam knows that their behavior can change quickly in response to weather, predators, or simple bovine unpredictability. The art of herding cattle involves reading the subtle signs that indicate how the animals will react to pressure. A skilled cowboy can predict when cattle will bunch together, when they'll scatter, and when they'll stampede. He learns to position himself and his horse to influence the herd's movement without creating panic, using the natural leadership dynamics within the cattle to guide the entire group in the desired direction. As the morning progresses and the herd begins to move toward the better grass and water near Willow Creek, the sophisticated nature of cowboy equipment becomes apparent. Every item a cowboy carries has been refined through decades of practical use, with form, following function in ways that ensure survival and efficiency in challenging conditions. Sam's lariat, coiled and hanging from his saddle horn, represents the culmination of centuries of development in rope-making technology. Made from carefully selected rawhide and crafted by specialists who understand the precise balance of strength, flexibility, and weight needed for effective cattle work, the rope serves as extension of the cowboy's own skills. In experienced hands, it can catch a running steer, secure a struggling horse, or perform dozens of other essential tasks. But the lariat's effectiveness depends entirely on the skill of the user. Learning to rope requires years of practice. Developing the hand-eye coordination to place a loop accurately while riding a moving horse. The timing to release at precisely the right moment, and the strength and technique to handle a struggling animal once it's caught. A cowboy's reputation often rests on his ability with a rope, and the best ropers are valued members of any outfit. Miguel demonstrates this expertise as he works to separate a small group of cattle that have wandered too far from the main herd. His lariat seems to flow through the air with liquid grace, the loop settling over the horns of a recalcitrant steer with the precision that comes from decades of practice. But what impresses Sam, even after years of working with skilled vaqueros, is Miguel's ability to handle the captured animal with minimum stress and maximum efficiency. The cattle, they tell you what they want to do, Miguel explains as he works. You listen to them. You work with them, not against them. Force creates fear, and fear creates trouble that no cowboy wants to face. The wisdom in Miguel's words reflects the deeper understanding that separates skilled cowboys from mere horsemen. Successful cattle work requires empathy with the animals, understanding their instincts and behaviors well enough to predict and guide their actions. Cowboys who rely on force and intimidation create more problems than they solve, while those who develop genuine skill in animal handling become invaluable to any operation. Jake's expertise lies in a different area. His understanding of horses borders on the supernatural. As he works his mount around the herd, the communication between man and animal appears almost telepathic. The horse responds to subtle shifts in weight, slight pressure from leg or rein, and changes in tension that are invisible to casual observers, but represent a complex conversation between partners. A good horse is worth 3 average cowboys, Jake observes as he watches Sam work with Copper. But a good horse needs a rider who understands him, who works with him instead of just using him like a machine. These animals, they want to work if you treat them right. As the morning's work continues and the sun climbs higher in the endless Texas sky, the chuck wagon remains the mobile headquarters around which cowboy life revolves. Cookie's domain represents far more than simple food preparation. It serves as supply depot, social center, medical station, and the closest thing to home that cowboys know during months on the trail. Cookie's real skill lies not just in cooking, but in logistics. He must plan meals for 15 men over weeks or months, managing supplies that include not only food but also basic medical supplies, tools for equipment repair, and the countless small items that make life on the range possible. His wagon carries flour and beans, coffee and salt pork, but also needle and thread, liniment for sore muscles, and the few books that provide entertainment during rare, quiet evenings. The noon meal, dinner in cowboy terminology, demonstrates Cookie's ability to create satisfying food under challenging conditions. Using a Dutch oven buried in coals and a simple iron skillet, he produces beef stew with dumplings, biscuits that rival anything made in a settled kitchen, and coffee that provides the caffeine essential for afternoon work. The secret, Cookie explains as he tends his cooking, is understanding your fire. Too hot, and you burn everything. Too cool, and nothing cooks right. Takes years to learn how to read coals and know what they'll do to your food. But Cookie's responsibilities extend beyond cooking. As the oldest and most experienced member of the outfit, he serves as informal counselor, mediator of disputes, and keeper of the collective wisdom that helps young cowboys survive their early years on the range. His stories and advice, dispensed around the evening fire, provide both entertainment and education for men who might go weeks without seeing another human being outside their small crew. The chuck wagon also serves as the outfit's communication center. Cookie maintains contact with ranch headquarters, other outfits, and the network of line camps and way stations that support ranching operations across the vast distances of the West. He carries mail, conveys messages, and keeps track of the complex logistics that make large-scale cattle operations possible. During the noon break, cowboys gather around the chuck wagon, not just for food, but for the social contact that helps maintain morale during the isolation of range work. Conversation ranges from practical matters, reports of water conditions, observations about cattle behavior, discussions of weather signs, to the personal stories and gentle humor that bind the crew together. As afternoon settles over the Texas grassland, The experienced eyes of the cowboy crew begin to detect signs that trouble might be approaching. Dark clouds building on the southwestern horizon, a change in the wind's direction, and subtle alterations in the behavior of both cattle and horses suggest that the peaceful morning might give way to a more challenging afternoon. Sam has learned to read weather signs with the same attention he pays to cattle behavior. On the open range, sudden storms can create conditions that threaten both human and animal life. Lightning poses an obvious danger in a landscape with few trees or sheltered areas, while sudden temperature drops can stress cattle and create conditions that lead to dangerous stampedes. Storm building to the southwest, Tom Bradley observes, his experienced eyes studying the cloud formations with the intensity of a man whose decisions affect the safety of his entire crew. Might be nothing, but that's the direction trouble usually comes from. Better start moving the herd toward the shelter near Willow Creek. The decision to move cattle before a storm requires balancing multiple factors. Pushing the animals too hard can create stress that makes them more likely to panic when the storm hits. Moving too slowly might leave them exposed to the worst weather. Reading the subtle signs that indicate how cattle will respond to pressure becomes crucial when time is limited and conditions are deteriorating. As the crew works to encourage the herd toward better shelter, their individual skills complement each other in ways that demonstrate the sophisticated teamwork required for successful cattle operations. Miguel's expertise with difficult animals helps manage the few head that resist being moved. Jake's understanding of horse behavior ensures that the crew's mounts remain calm and responsive despite the approaching storm. Sam's steady reliability makes him the natural choice to work the most dangerous position, riding drag behind the herd where dust, stubborn cattle, and the constant threat of being cut off from help test a cowboy's nerve. The approaching storm also reveals the less glamorous aspects of cowboy life that Hollywood myths rarely acknowledge. There's no glory in sitting a nervous horse while lightning flickers on the horizon and the wind carries the scent of rain that might become a dangerous deluge. The reality involves cold, wet, exhausting work, performed by men who understand that their livelihood depends on protecting animals that represent someone else's investment. As the first drops of rain begin to fall and the wind picks up enough to make the horses dance nervously, the crew successfully guides the herd into the relative shelter of a grove of cottonwood trees near Willow Creek. The work has been accomplished without drama, without heroics, and without the kind of spectacular incidents that make good stories, but represent professional failure in the real world of ranching. "Good work, boys," Tom Bradley calls out as the crew positions themselves to monitor the herd during the storm. "Quiet and steady gets the job done every time. Let's see what this weather wants to do to us." As thunder begins to rumble in the distance and the wind carries the promise of a significant storm, the Cowboys settle in for what might be a long, uncomfortable afternoon. But they face the challenge with the calm competence that marks professional stockmen. Men who understand that their job is not to seek adventure, but to prevent it. Not to create exciting stories, but to ensure that the cattle under their care reach their destinations safely and profitably. The reality of cowboy life, Sam reflects as he adjusts his hat against the first serious raindrops, lies not in dramatic confrontations or heroic gestures, but in the quiet satisfaction of work done well under challenging conditions. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new weather, new problems to solve with the skills and experience that separate real cowboys from the romantic myths that surround them. 3 weeks after the storm at Willow Creek, Sam Rodriguez finds himself part of something far grander than daily ranch work. a genuine cattle drive from Texas to the railroad at Dodge City, Kansas. The XIT Ranch has assembled a herd of 2,500 head of prime beef cattle, along with a crew of 18 cowboys needed to move them safely across 400 miles of open country. The preparation for such an undertaking reveals the sophisticated logistics behind what popular culture portrays as a simple journey north. Trail boss Tom Bradley has spent weeks planning the route, identifying water sources, negotiating with landowners for crossing rights, and coordinating with the railroad to ensure the cattle cars will be available when the herd arrives at market. The chuck wagon carries supplies for 6 weeks on the trail, including not only food, but also veterinary medicines for sick cattle, tools for equipment repair, extra horseshoes and nails, ammunition for hunting and protection, and the countless small items that make the difference between success and disaster when help is days away. Each cowboy brings his own string of horses, typically 6 to 8 animals selected for different aspects of trail work. Some horses excel at night herding, their calm temperament and sure footing making them ideal for the dangerous work of circling restless cattle in darkness. Others are chosen for their speed and agility in cutting specific animals from the herd. Still others are valued for their endurance on long days when cowboys might spend 14 hours in the saddle. Sam's string includes Copper, his reliable morning horse whose steady nature makes him perfect for the routine work of keeping cattle moving in the right direction. There's also Streak, a quick-footed paint horse ideal for working in rough country where agility matters more than size. His night horse, a calm gray mare named Moonlight, has the invaluable ability to work cattle in darkness without becoming spooked by sudden movements or sounds. The herd itself represents a careful selection of animals ready for market. Mixed-breed cattle combining the hardiness of Texas Longhorns with the beef quality of newer breeds brought from the east. They've been gathered from across the vast XIT holdings and shaped into a manageable group through weeks of careful work. "Boys, we've got a good herd and good weather," Tom Bradley addresses the assembled crew on the morning of departure. "Dodge City is paying top dollar for quality beef, and that's what we're delivering. Keep them moving steady, keep them together, and we'll all come home with money in our pockets." The social dynamics of the trail crew reflect the realities of frontier labor. Besides Sam and his Anglo-American colleagues, the outfit includes 5 Mexican vaqueros whose families have been working cattle for generations, 3 African-American cowboys whose skills have earned them positions of responsibility, 2 former Union soldiers seeking new lives in the West, and 1 teenager from Ohio whose determination to learn the cattle business has overcome his obvious inexperience. Life on a cattle drive follows rhythms as old as the business itself, refined through decades of experience into routines that maximize efficiency while minimizing the countless dangers that threaten both men and animals on the long journey to market. The day begins before dawn, with Cookie's familiar call, and the strong coffee that provides essential caffeine for men who will spend the next 14 hours managing 2,500 head of potentially unpredictable animals. The herd moves in a formation that reflects both practical necessity and hard-won wisdom about cattle behavior. At the front, the most experienced cowboys ride point, guiding the lead steers and setting the pace for the entire herd. These animals, carefully selected for their calm temperament and natural leadership qualities, determine the direction and speed of travel for all the cattle behind them. Along the sides, swing riders and flank riders maintain the herd shape, preventing cattle from wandering off the trail while watching for signs of trouble. The most challenging position, riding drag at the rear of the herd, falls to newer cowboys like Sam, who must deal with stragglers, dust that makes breathing difficult, and the constant possibility of being cut off from help if the herd suddenly changes direction. The secret to a successful drive, explains Jim Carter, an experienced point rider whose 15 years of trail work have taught him to read cattle behavior like a book, is keeping them moving without making them nervous. Push too hard and they'll stampede. Don't push hard enough and you'll never reach market before winter. The pace of travel, typically 12 to 15 miles per day, might seem slow by modern standards, but it represents the maximum distance cattle can cover without losing the weight that determines their market value. Cattle that arrive at railroad towns in poor condition bring reduced prices that can transform a profitable drive into a financial disaster. Water sources determine the rhythm of travel more than any other factor. The herd must reach reliable water every day, and the distance between water holes often determines where the outfit will camp for the night. Trail bosses who miscalculate water distances risk losing cattle to dehydration or being forced to push exhausted animals too hard in desperate attempts to reach the next reliable source. River crossings present some of the most dangerous moments of any trail drive. Cattle that have been moving peacefully for days can suddenly panic when faced with flowing water, creating stampedes that scatter the herd and endanger anyone in their path. Success depends on the skill of the lead riders in encouraging the first animals across, while the rest of the crew works to prevent panic from spreading through the entire herd. Sam experiences his first major river crossing at the Red River, the traditional boundary between Texas and Indian Territory. The muddy water runs higher than normal due to recent rains, and the cattle show obvious reluctance to enter the swift current. As darkness settles over the endless grassland and the herd beds down for the night, the nature of cowboy work changes dramatically. Night herding requires different skills, different equipment, and a different temperament than the daylight hours of pushing cattle across open country. The cowboys who excel at this dangerous work possess an almost supernatural ability to move among restless cattle in darkness, calming nervous animals with their presence while watching for the first signs of the stampedes that can scatter a herd across miles of prairie. Sam draws the middle watch, from midnight until dawn, riding slowly around the bedded herd on moonlight, his calm gray mare whose sure footing and steady temperament make her ideal for night work. The darkness transforms the familiar landscape into a mysterious realm where every shadow might conceal danger and every sound requires immediate attention. The cattle lie spread across several acres of good grass, most of them resting but many still alert to sounds and movements that might signal the approach of predators. Cowboys learn to identify the various sounds that cattle make during the night. The contented rumbling that indicates peaceful rest, the nervous shifting that suggests growing anxiety, and the sharp snorts that often precede panic. The key to night herding, Miguel had explained during Sam's first week on the trail, is becoming part of the night yourself. Move too fast, make too much noise, and you'll spook the whole herd. But move too slow or stay too far away, and you won't be there when trouble starts. The silence of the prairie night is far from complete. Coyotes call to each other in the distance, their voices carrying messages that cowboys learn to interpret. A lone coyote hunting for rabbits poses no threat to the herd, but a pack calling back and forth might be working up courage to test the cowboys' vigilance. Wolves, though increasingly rare, represent a more serious danger that requires immediate response. Night herding also provides opportunities for reflection that the busy daylight hours rarely allow. As Sam guides Moonlight in a slow circle around the sleeping cattle, he has time to think about his life, his future, and the vast landscape that stretches endlessly in all directions. The isolation that defines much of cowboy life becomes most apparent during these solitary hours, when a man and his horse are alone with 2,500 head of cattle under a sky brilliant with stars, undimmed by any artificial light. The weather concerns that occupy much of a trail boss's attention become more acute during night hours. A sudden storm can stampede a peaceful herd in seconds, scattering cattle across miles of territory and creating chaos that might take days to resolve. Cowboys learn to read cloud formations, wind patterns, and barometric pressure with the expertise of professional meteorologists, understanding that their livelihood depends on accurately predicting weather changes. Tonight, the sky remains clear, with a quarter moon providing enough light for safe movement while not being bright enough to keep the cattle restless. Sam can make out the forms of other night herders at their stations around the herd. Dark figures moving slowly against the lighter grass, their presence providing security and companionship even across the distances that separate them. The peaceful night shatters without warning when a lightning flash illuminates the prairie, followed immediately by thunder that seems to shake the very ground beneath the cattle. In the space of heartbeats, 2,500 head of previously calm animals explode into panicked motion, their collective terror creating a thundering mass of horns, hooves, and muscle that can crush anything in its path. Sam feels Moonlight tense beneath him as the first cattle lurch to their feet, her experience with nightwork making her aware of the danger before her rider fully comprehends what's happening. The mare spins and lunges forward without waiting for direction, her instincts carrying them away from the main body of the stampede, while positioning them to help turn the leaders away from their destructive course. The sound of a stampede defies description. Thousands of hooves striking the earth create a rumbling that drowns out shouted commands, while the clicking of horns and the bellowing of terrified animals add to the chaos. In the darkness, it becomes almost impossible to distinguish between the noise of the cattle and the thunder that triggered their panic. Turn them. Turn the leaders. Tom Bradley's voice carries across the confusion, though his words are barely audible above the noise of the stampede. The standard response to a stampede involves attempting to turn the lead animals in a circle, gradually tightening the circle until the entire herd is milling rather than running in a straight line that could carry them for miles. Sam finds himself riding alongside the leaders, pushing Moonlight to her limits as they race through the darkness. The mare's sure footing and familiarity with cattle work allow her to navigate the dangerous terrain while avoiding the horns and hooves of panicked animals. Sam's lariat remains coiled. Attempting to rope cattle during a stampede is suicide, and successful management depends on positioning and pressure rather than force. Gradually, the combined efforts of the night herders begin to have effect. The leaders, pressed by cowboys on their right side, begin to curve back toward the center of the herd. Other riders work to prevent cattle on the edges from breaking away and scattering across the prairie. The thunderstorm moves past as quickly as it arrived, but the cattle remain nervous and jumpy, requiring careful handling to prevent another outbreak of panic. By dawn, the crew has managed to gather most of the scattered herd, though a count reveals that nearly 200 head are still missing. The day that should have been spent covering ground toward Dodge City will instead be devoted to searching for strays scattered across miles of grassland, demonstrating how quickly careful planning can be disrupted by forces beyond human control. That's why they pay us, Tom Bradley observes philosophically as the crew prepares for a long day of gathering cattle. Anyone can drive cattle when everything goes right. We earn our money when things go wrong. 5 days after the stampede, with the herd reunited and moving north again, the outfit faces one of the most dangerous challenges of any trail drive: crossing the Arkansas River at a ford near the small settlement of Wichita. The spring runoff has made the normally manageable crossing treacherous, with swift current and uncertain footing that can trap or drown both cattle and horses. The river runs bank full with muddy water that conceals rocks, holes, and debris that could cripple a horse or drag down a swimming steer. Previous herds have churned the approaches into sticky mud that makes movement difficult, while the far bank shows signs of erosion that could trap animals attempting to climb out of the water. Tom Bradley studies the crossing for nearly an hour, walking his horse back and forth along the bank while evaluating current speed, water depth, and the condition of both approaches. His decision will determine whether the herd crosses safely or faces disaster that could destroy the entire drive. "Water's higher than I like, but it's not getting any lower," he finally announces. "We'll cross this afternoon when the cattle are rested and the sun is behind us. Miguel, you and Jim take the leaders across first. Rest of you, spread out and keep the pressure steady, but not too strong." The crossing begins with Miguel and Jim Carter guiding their horses into the muddy water, the experienced animals picking their way carefully across the uncertain bottom. Behind them, the lead steers show the typical reluctance of cattle faced with flowing water, milling at the bank and bellowing their displeasure at being asked to enter the river. Success depends entirely on getting the first animals across safely. Once a few cattle reach the far bank, their natural herd instinct will draw the others forward. But if the leaders panic or become trapped in the water, the entire operation can dissolve into chaos that scatters cattle for miles along both banks. Sam finds himself working the right flank of the herd, encouraging reluctant animals toward the water, while preventing them from breaking away downstream. His horse Copper has never crossed a river this dangerous, and Sam can feel the animal's nervousness in the tight way he holds his head and the quick, short steps that indicate anxiety. The first cattle enter the water reluctantly, their natural fear of the swift current overcome by pressure from the Cowboys and the example of the lead animals already in the river. The crossing goes smoothly for several minutes as hundreds of animals wade and swim across the treacherous ford. Then, disaster strikes. A young steer loses his footing in the swift current and begins to panic, his thrashing attracting the attention of other cattle and creating a jam at the narrowest part of the crossing. Animals pile up behind the blockage, while those in front struggle to reach the far bank, creating exactly the kind of chaos that can transform a manageable situation into a catastrophe. Without hesitation, Jake Thompson spurs his horse into the river, the animal responding instantly despite the obvious danger. Jake's expertise with horses becomes apparent as his mount navigates the treacherous footing while positioning itself to help free the trapped steer. Using his horse's strength and his own skill with a rope, Jake manages to help the panicked animal regain its footing and continue across the river. The successful crossing takes nearly 3 hours of careful work, but by evening the entire herd is safely across the Arkansas River with only minor losses. The achievement represents exactly the kind of quiet competence that separates professional cowboys from the romantic myths that surround their occupation. Dangerous, skilled work performed without drama or heroics, but with the calm expertise that makes the difference between success and disaster. As the outfit makes camp on the north bank of the river, with Dodge City and the railroad now only days away, Sam reflects on how different the reality of cowboy life is from the stories he heard as a boy in San Antonio. There have been no gun battles, no dramatic rescues, no romantic encounters with beautiful women. Instead, there's been hard work performed by skilled men who understand that their job is not to create exciting stories, but to deliver cattle safely to market. The satisfaction comes not from adventure, but from competence, not from individual heroics, but from teamwork that accomplishes difficult tasks under challenging conditions. Tomorrow will bring new challenges as the drive continues north toward its destination. But tonight, the crew rests with the quiet pride of professionals who have successfully completed another dangerous day in a job that demands the best of both men and horses. 60 miles northeast of the Arkansas River crossing, another kind of cattle operation unfolds under the capable management of Martha Patterson, a 34-year-old widow who has built one of the most successful ranching enterprises in Kansas through a combination of shrewd business sense, practical knowledge, and the kind of determination that the frontier demands from anyone who hopes to prosper. Martha inherited the Double P Ranch from her husband James, who died 3 years ago when his horse stepped in a prairie dog hole and threw him against a rock. But rather than sell the operation and return to the relative safety of town life, she chose to learn every aspect of the cattle business, transforming herself from a farmer's wife into a successful rancher whose opinion is sought by stockmen throughout the region. The ranch headquarters reflects Martha's practical approach to both business and life. The main house, built of native stone quarried from the creek bed, provides comfortable living quarters while serving as the administrative center for an operation that manages 4,000 head of cattle across 20 sections of prime grassland. The working buildings, barns, corrals, bunkhouse, and smithy show the kind of careful maintenance that marks a well-run operation. Martha's day begins before dawn, just like that of any cowboy, but her responsibilities extend far beyond the cattle work that occupies most ranchers. She must manage the ranch's finances, negotiate with buyers and suppliers, oversee the complex logistics of a large-scale cattle operation, and handle the countless administrative details that determine whether the enterprise prospers or fails. People think running a ranch is just about cattle, Martha explains as she reviews the monthly accounts by lamplight in her kitchen office. But the cattle are just one part of it. You have to understand markets, weather, politics, and human nature. The numbers have to work, or all the good intentions in the world won't keep you in business. Her approach to managing cowboys reflects the same practical wisdom. The Double P crew includes 8 full-time hands and additional seasonal workers during branding and shipping seasons. Martha pays wages that are competitive with other operations while demanding the same level of competence she would expect from any employee. Cowboys who prove reliable and skilled find themselves with steady employment and opportunities for advancement. Those who don't measure up quickly find themselves looking for work elsewhere. "I can't afford to keep men who don't earn their wages," she observes matter-of-factly. "But I pay good money for good work, and I treat my hands with respect. Most of them have been with me for 2 years or more, which tells you something about how we get along." The business side of ranching requires skills that few people associate with the romantic image of the cowboy. Martha maintains detailed records of cattle purchases and sales, tracks breeding programs that improve the quality of her herd, monitors grass conditions across her vast holdings, and stays informed about market conditions in Kansas City, Chicago, and other major beef centers. Her success challenges the assumption that women were merely passengers in the development of the American West. While popular culture focuses on male cowboys and cattle barons, the reality includes thousands of women who owned and operated ranching enterprises, often with greater success than their male counterparts. The Double P Ranch employs several women in addition to Martha herself. Sarah Mackenzie serves as cook for the crew, but her responsibilities extend far beyond meal preparation. She manages the ranch commissary, provides basic medical care for both humans and animals, and maintains the vegetable garden that supplies fresh food during the growing season. Her skills with injured animals have saved the ranch hundreds of dollars in veterinary bills. Women notice things that men often miss, Sarah observes as she tends to a horse with a minor cut on its leg. We're used to taking care of living things, and that applies to cattle and horses just as much as to children. Another woman, Maria Gonzalez, manages the ranch's extensive horse breeding operation. Her expertise with horses rivals that of any man on the range, and her careful selection of breeding stock has produced some of the finest cow horses in Kansas. The remuda that she oversees represents a significant portion of the ranch's value, and her judgment in horse matters is trusted absolutely by Martha and the crew. In the bustling cow town of Dodge City, another kind of Western woman builds her own version of the American dream. Clara Bennett operates the Red Dog Cafe, a restaurant that serves not only the cowboys who arrive with trail herds, but also the growing population of permanent residents who are transforming Dodge City from a temporary cattle shipping point into a genuine community. Clara arrived in Dodge City 5 years ago with her 2 children and $17 in cash, fleeing an abusive marriage in Ohio. Like many women who came west, she discovered that the frontier offered opportunities for independence and self-determination that were rarely available in more settled regions. The demand for services like cooking, laundry, and lodging created business opportunities for women with the courage and determination to seize them. The Red Dog Cafe occupies a 2-story frame building on Front Street, its ground floor serving as restaurant and its upper rooms providing lodging for travelers who prefer comfort to the rough accommodations available in most frontier establishments. Clara's reputation for clean rooms, good food, and honest dealing has made her restaurant the preferred stopping place for trail bosses, cattle buyers, and other people whose business requires reliable accommodations. The secret to success in the restaurant business, Clara explains as she prepares for the evening rush that comes when trail crews arrive in town, is understanding what people really need, not just what they think they want. Cowboys who've been eating beans and biscuits for weeks don't just want a good meal. They want to feel civilized again, to remember what it's like to eat at a real table with real plates and honest-to-goodness vegetables. Clara's menu reflects this understanding. While she serves the standard frontier fare of beef, beans, and biscuits, she also offers fresh vegetables from her own garden, pies made with dried fruits that she orders from Kansas City, and coffee that doesn't require a horseshoe to test its strength. The difference between her cooking and typical trail food justifies the premium prices she charges. Her business success extends beyond the restaurant itself. Clara has invested her profits in real estate, purchasing several lots in the growing commercial district, and building rental properties that provide steady income from the increasing number of permanent residents. She also operates an informal banking service, providing loans to cowboys and small businessmen who cannot obtain credit from the more formal financial institutions. The social dynamics of frontier towns create opportunities for women that would be unimaginable in more established communities. Clara serves on the town council, her voice carrying weight in decisions about schools, sanitation, and other municipal matters. Her success in business has earned her the respect of male community leaders who might otherwise dismiss women's opinions on public affairs. "People judge you by what you accomplish out here," she observes. They don't have time for the kind of nonsense about what women can and can't do that you find back east. If you can do the job, they'll let you do it. If you can't, they'll find someone who can, regardless of whether that person wears pants or a dress. Clara's children, now 15 and 12, attend the local school that Clara helped establish. Like many frontier children, they're growing up with opportunities and expectations that differ dramatically from those available to their Eastern counterparts. Her daughter Mary helps run the restaurant while studying bookkeeping and business practices that will prepare her to manage her own enterprises. Her son Tom works part-time at the local livery stable while planning to study law through correspondence courses. At the other end of Dodge City's main street, Annie Morrison operates a general store that serves as the commercial hub for ranchers, farmers, and townspeople throughout the region. Her establishment represents another model of female success in the West. The woman entrepreneur who identified an opportunity and built a thriving business through careful planning, hard work, and superior customer service. Annie's store occupies a large building that she designed specifically for her business needs. The main floor displays everything from groceries and dry goods to tools and weapons, while the upper floor serves as warehouse space for the enormous inventory required to serve customers who might travel 50 miles to make major purchases. The diversity of Annie's inventory reflects the complex needs of frontier society. She stocks basic necessities like flour, sugar, and coffee, alongside luxury items like silk fabric and imported china. Her tool selection includes everything from farming implements to the specialized equipment needed for various frontier occupations. The weapons section offers both practical firearms for hunting and protection, and fancy presentation pieces for special occasions. The key to retail success, Annie explains as she checks inventory levels against her detailed records, is anticipating what people will need before they know they need it. I have to order goods months in advance, trying to predict what the market will want when those goods finally arrive. This requires sophisticated understanding of both local conditions and broader economic trends. Annie maintains correspondence with suppliers in Kansas City, St. Louis, and Chicago, staying informed about new products, price changes, and shipping schedules. She also monitors local developments, new railroad construction, changes in cattle markets, weather patterns that affect farming, that might influence demand for specific goods. Her customer base includes virtually everyone in the region who has money to spend. Cowboys outfitting for trail drives purchase clothing, gear, and personal items. Ranchers buy tools, equipment, and household goods. Farmers need seeds, implements, and supplies for their operations. Town residents rely on her store for groceries, clothing, and the manufactured goods that make frontier life more comfortable. Annie's business practices reflect the personal relationships that characterize frontier commerce. She extends credit to customers she trusts, provides advice about products and their uses, and often serves as an informal information exchange where people learn about job opportunities, land for sale, and other important local news. People don't just come here to buy things, she observes. They come for information, advice, and conversation. I probably know more about what's happening in this county than the sheriff does, just from listening to my customers talk. Her success has enabled Annie to expand beyond retail operations. She owns rental properties in town, has invested in a freight company that serves the growing network of ranches and farms, and holds shares in the local bank. Like Clara Bennett, she has parlayed initial success into a diversified business portfolio that provides multiple income streams. As the railroad extends westward and transforms the nature of frontier life, a new kind of opportunity emerges for women seeking independence and adventure. The Harvey House restaurants, established by entrepreneur Fred Harvey to provide quality meals for railroad passengers, create employment opportunities for young women willing to relocate to frontier towns and commit to high standards of service. 22-year-old Elizabeth Hartwell represents the thousands of Harvey girls who brought Eastern standards of cooking and service to railroad towns throughout the West. Originally from Boston, she answered a newspaper advertisement promising young women, 18 to 30 years of age, of good character, attractive, and intelligent. Employment in the developing territories. The Harvey House in Dodge City, where Elizabeth works, represents a revolution in frontier dining. The restaurant maintains standards of cleanliness, service, and food quality that rival establishments in major eastern cities. The Harvey girls wear identical black dresses with white aprons, maintain strict standards of personal appearance, and follow detailed protocols for serving meals to demanding railroad passengers. Mr. Harvey believes that good food and proper service are not luxuries, but necessities, Elizabeth explains as she prepares for the arrival of the afternoon westbound train. He says that if we're going to build civilized communities in the West, we have to start with civilized behavior and basic things like how people eat their meals. The impact of Harvey House restaurants extends far beyond providing good meals for travelers. They introduce frontier communities to standards of sophistication and refinement that help transform rough mining camps and cattle towns into genuine cities. The presence of educated, refined women in these establishments creates social dynamics that encourage better behavior from male customers. Elizabeth's daily routine begins at dawn, with careful preparation of the dining room and kitchen for the day's service. The Harvey House serves 3 passenger trains each day, with each train stop allowing exactly 30 minutes for passengers to eat a complete meal. This requires precise timing and flawless execution by a staff that includes both Harvey girls and male kitchen workers. The work is demanding but well compensated by frontier standards. Harvey girls earn wages comparable to those of skilled male workers, receive room and board in company-provided housing, and work under contracts that specify working conditions and personal conduct. Many use the position as a stepping stone to other opportunities, either advancing within the Harvey organization or marrying successful local men. I've learned more about business in 2 years working here than most women learn in a lifetime, Elizabeth observes. Mr. Harvey runs this operation like a fine machine, and working for him teaches you about organization, efficiency, and attention to detail that you can apply to anything you do. The social position of Harvey girls reflects the changing role of women in Western society. They are neither the dependent housewives of Eastern tradition, nor the rough frontier women who worked alongside men in mining camps and cattle towns. Instead, they represent a new model of female independence. Educated, professional women who earn good wages while maintaining middle-class standards of behavior and appearance. At the edge of Dodge City, Rose O'Malley operates a boarding house that serves the growing population of permanent residents who are transforming the cattle town into a genuine community. Her establishment provides not just lodging, but also the kind of social center that helps create bonds between people from diverse backgrounds who have come together in pursuit of opportunity on the frontier. Rose arrived in Kansas as a young widow with 3 children, carrying little more than determination and the domestic skills that Irish women of her generation learned from childhood. She began by taking in laundry for cowboys and railroad workers, gradually saving enough money to rent a large house that she converted into lodging for permanent residents rather than temporary visitors. The O'Malley boarding house serves a carefully selected clientele of working people who need clean, affordable accommodations while establishing themselves in the community. School teachers, clerks, skilled craftsmen, and other people earning modest but steady wages find in Rose's establishment the kind of stable home environment that helps them build successful lives in their new community. I learned long ago that success comes from taking care of people properly, Rose explains as she supervises the preparation of the communal evening meal that brings her residents together each day. People will pay for honest value, and they'll appreciate you if you treat them with respect and kindness. The boarding house operates like an extended family, with Rose serving as the maternal figure who maintains standards of behavior while providing support and advice to residents facing the challenges of frontier life. Her evening meals become social occasions where people share news, discuss their work, and form the friendships that create community bonds. Rose's influence extends throughout the neighborhood through her involvement in the women's organizations that address community needs not met by formal government structures. She helps organize efforts to establish schools, provide care for sick residents, and assist families facing economic hardship. Her boarding house often serves as an informal meeting place for these activities. The success of her business has enabled Rose to purchase the building she originally rented, and she has plans to expand by constructing additional accommodation for the growing number of people seeking permanent residence in Dodge City. She also owns rental properties that provide steady income while contributing to the community's development. Her children, now young adults, have grown up with opportunities unimaginable in the Ireland their mother left behind. Her eldest son manages a freight business that serves ranchers throughout the region. Her daughter teaches at the local school while studying to become a lawyer through correspondence courses with an Eastern university. Her youngest son plans to attend college to study engineering, with the goal of participating in the railroad construction that continues to transform the West. This country gives people chances to become whatever they're willing to work for, Rose observes, as she watches her daughter help younger students with their lessons. It doesn't matter where you came from, or what your family did back east. What matters is what you do here and now. The boarding house represents one of thousands of small enterprises operated by women throughout the developing West. Businesses that provided essential services while creating opportunities for female independence and achievement. Rose's success demonstrates that the frontier offered alternatives to traditional gender roles for women with the courage and determination to seize them. As evening settles over Dodge City and the residents of the O'Malley boarding house gather for their communal meal, the conversation flows across topics that reflect the diverse interests and ambitions of people building new lives in a new land. The cowboys, entrepreneurs, homesteaders, and railroad workers who share Rose's table represent the human diversity that characterizes the real American West. Not the simplified myths of popular culture, but the complex reality of people from many backgrounds working together to build communities and pursue opportunities in an expanding nation. Tomorrow will bring new challenges and new opportunities for all of them. But tonight, they rest in the security of community bonds and shared purpose that makes success possible, even in the most challenging circumstances. The West they're creating together bears little resemblance to the romanticized version portrayed in dime novels and later Hollywood films. But it offers something more valuable than adventure: the chance for ordinary people to build extraordinary lives through hard work, mutual support, and the kind of determination that transforms wilderness into civilization. By the summer of 1885, the landscape of the American West bears little resemblance to the open range that Sam Rodriguez first encountered a decade earlier. The railroad has stretched iron tentacles across the prairie, fundamentally altering the economics of cattle ranching and the nature of cowboy work. What once required months-long trail drives from Texas to Kansas can now be accomplished in days, with cattle loaded onto rail cars at shipping points throughout the region. Sam, now 36 and trail boss for a medium-sized outfit near Fort Worth, surveys the loading pens at the new railroad siding with mixed feelings. The efficiency and safety of rail transport represent obvious improvements over the dangers and uncertainties of trail driving, but they also signal the end of an era that has defined his entire adult life. 20 years ago, none of this existed, observes Tom Bradley, now in his 50s and working as a livestock agent for the railroad. We used to drive cattle 800 miles to reach market. Now we can ship them to Chicago in less time than it used to take to reach Dodge City. The transformation extends far beyond simple transportation. The railroad has brought Eastern investors who purchase vast tracts of rangeland, fencing it with the barbed wire that makes large-scale ranching economically feasible, while ending the open range system that once defined the cattle industry. Modern ranches operate more like factories than the nomadic enterprises of earlier decades. The new ranching model requires different skills from cowboys. Instead of the endurance and wilderness knowledge needed for long trail drives, the emphasis shifts to efficiency in handling cattle within fenced pastures, expertise with mechanical equipment, and the kind of systematic approach to livestock management that maximizes productivity per acre, rather than simply exploiting unlimited free grass. Sam's current employer, the Matador Ranch, exemplifies these changes. Owned by a consortium of Scottish investors, the operation manages 800,000 acres of fenced range using scientific breeding programs, systematic grass management, and careful attention to the financial details that determine profitability. Cowboys work regular schedules, live in permanent housing, and receive steady wages rather than the seasonal employment that characterized earlier ranching. The work is steadier now, Sam admits, as he watches a crew load cattle into railroad cars with mechanical efficiency that would have been impossible during his early years on the range. But somehow it feels different. Less like an adventure, and more like just another job. The changes affect different people in different ways. Older cowboys whose skills were developed for trail driving often struggle to adapt to the more systematic approach of modern ranching. Some drift toward other occupations, while others find employment with smaller operations that still maintain something of the older traditions. Younger men entering the cattle business have different expectations and different skills. Many have some formal education, understand basic business principles, and approach ranching as a career rather than simply a way to earn temporary wages. They adapt more easily to the mechanical innovations and systematic procedures that characterize modern operations. The most dramatic change transforming the West comes not from railroads or corporate investment, but from the thousands of farming families who have responded to government land policies by claiming homesteads throughout the former cattle country. The Homestead Act, which grants 160 acres of public land to any family willing to live on it and improve it for 5 years, has attracted settlers from across America and Europe to regions that were recently the exclusive domain of cattlemen. Sam encounters this transformation directly when the Matador Ranch loses access to water rights that the company has used for years, but never formally owned. A German immigrant family, the Mullers, has claimed a homestead that includes the creek crossing essential for moving cattle between summer and winter pastures. "Nothing personal against you boys," explains Heinrich Muller as he and Sam inspect the contested area. "But this land was open for homesteading, and my family needs a place to farm." We didn't come all the way from Germany to watch other people's cattle eat grass that could grow wheat. The conflict represents thousands of similar disputes that arise as farming families claim lands that ranchers have used as free range. The legal resolution usually favors the homesteaders, whose formal land ownership trumps the informal use rights that cattlemen have traditionally relied upon. Muller's homestead illustrates the dramatic changes that farming brings to the landscape. Where cattle once grazed on native grass, the family has plowed fields of wheat, corn, and hay. Their house, barn, and outbuildings create a permanent settlement that divides the range and interferes with traditional cattle movements. But the changes also demonstrate the success of government policies designed to promote agricultural development. The Mueller family has built a productive farm from raw prairie, creating wealth where none existed before while contributing to the agricultural productivity that feeds the nation's growing population. People back east think this is still the Wild West, Mueller observes as he shows Sam the improvements his family has made. But we're building something permanent here. Schools for our children, churches for our communities, businesses that will last for generations. The social dynamics of homesteading communities differ markedly from the transient cowboy culture that preceded them. Farming families invest in permanent improvements, establish institutions like schools and churches, and create the kind of stable communities that support long-term economic development. Children growing up on homesteads attend school regularly, preparing for futures that might include college education and professional careers. Their parents participate in local government, organize cooperative ventures like grain elevators and marketing associations, and build the civic institutions that transform frontier settlements into genuine towns. The success of farming in formerly cattle-exclusive regions demonstrates the agricultural potential that government policies aim to unlock. Modern techniques, improved seeds, and favorable weather during the 1880s produce crop yields that justify the optimism of homesteading families and validate the wisdom of encouraging agricultural settlement. As the changes accelerating throughout the West force decisions about his future, Sam Rodriguez faces choices that reflect the broader transformation of frontier society. At 36, he possesses skills and experience that remain valuable, but the nature of available opportunities has changed dramatically from his early years as a cowboy. The Matador Ranch has offered him a permanent position as foreman of one of their divisions, with steady wages, company housing, and the kind of job security that was unimaginable during the era of open-range ranching. The work would involve managing cattle within fenced pastures, supervising a crew of cowboys whose duties resemble those of factory workers, more than the independent horsemen of earlier decades. Alternatively, Sam could use his savings and experience to claim his own homestead, joining the thousands of former cowboys who have become farmers as the range closes around them. His knowledge of land, weather, and livestock would serve him well as he develops agricultural operations on formerly open range. A third option involves relocating to regions where traditional ranching continues: Montana, Wyoming, or the more remote areas of Colorado and New Mexico, where corporate ownership and agricultural settlement have not yet transformed the industry. But this would mean starting over in unfamiliar territory, leaving behind the relationships and local knowledge that represent his most valuable assets. The truth is, the old days are gone, Sam admits to himself as he considers his options. Fighting the changes won't bring them back. The question is how to make the best of what's coming. His decision reflects both practical considerations and personal values. The security offered by the Matador Ranch appeals to a man who has spent years living with the uncertainties of seasonal employment and unpredictable income. But the loss of independence troubles someone whose identity has been shaped by the freedom and self-reliance that characterize traditional cowboy life. Sam's relationship with Maria Santos, the daughter of his old trail partner Miguel, adds another dimension to his decision-making. Their friendship has gradually developed into something deeper, and marriage would provide the kind of personal stability that complements financial security. Maria understands this life, Sam reflects. She grew up around cattle and horses, knows what the work involves and what the changes mean. If we're going to build something together, we need to be practical about what the future really offers. The conversation that settles his future takes place not in dramatic confrontation, but in quiet discussion around the kitchen table of Miguel Santos, whose own transition from cowboy to ranch foreman illustrates successful adaptation to changing circumstances. The skills don't disappear, Miguel observes as they discuss Sam's options. Knowing cattle, understanding horses, reading weather and grass. These things still matter. They just apply differently in the new situation. As Sam Rodriguez accepts the position with the Matador Ranch and begins planning his marriage to Maria Santos, he represents thousands of cowboys who successfully navigated the transition from open range to modern ranching. Their stories, rarely dramatic enough for dime novels or Hollywood films, embody the real legacy of the cowboy era. Not adventures and gunfights, but the patient development of skills and character that enabled ordinary people to accomplish extraordinary things. The ranching industry that emerged from this transformation would eventually become one of America's most important agricultural sectors, feeding a growing nation while providing the foundation for countless small communities throughout the West. The cowboys who participated in this development contributed far more than popular culture recognizes. They were the skilled workers whose competence made large-scale livestock operations possible. The diversity of people who worked as cowboys also challenges popular stereotypes about the American West. African-American cowboys like Jake Thompson found opportunities for economic advancement that were rarely available in other regions. Mexican vaqueros like Miguel Santos preserved and transmitted skills that became essential elements of American ranching. Immigrants from Europe and other regions found in cowboy work a path toward economic independence and social acceptance. Women like Martha Patterson, Clara Bennett, and Rose O'Malley built businesses and communities that provided the infrastructure necessary for economic development. Their achievements demonstrate that the West offered opportunities for female independence and entrepreneurship that were unusual in 19th century America. The communities that grew from frontier settlements retained many of the values that characterized cowboy culture. Emphasis on competence over credentials, respect for honest work, and the kind of mutual support that enables people to survive and prosper in challenging circumstances. These values would continue to influence American culture long after the original frontier had disappeared. The technology and techniques developed during the cowboy era provided the foundation for modern ranching operations that continue to supply American consumers with high-quality beef. The breeding programs, grass management practices, and animal handling methods pioneered by 19th century ranchers evolved into the scientific approaches that characterize contemporary agriculture. Perhaps most importantly, the cowboy era demonstrated that democratic values and capitalist enterprise could succeed in transforming wilderness into productive agricultural regions. The combination of individual initiative and cooperative effort that characterized frontier ranching provided a model for economic development that would be replicated throughout the American West. As you drift toward peaceful sleep, dear listener, Carry with you the memory of these remarkable people who built an industry and shaped a region through the simple expedient of hard work done well. The cowboys whose lives we have shared tonight were not the gunslinging heroes of popular mythology, but something more valuable. Skilled workers whose competence and character contributed to the development of modern America. Their stories remind us that the greatest adventures often lie not in dramatic confrontations but in the patient mastery of difficult skills. Not in individual heroics, but in the cooperative effort that accomplishes difficult tasks. Not in romantic myths, but in the honest work that builds communities and creates opportunities for future generations. The cowboys whose legacy lives on in every successful ranch, every thriving Western community, and every person who understands that true achievement comes from competence, integrity, and the willingness to work hard for shared goals. Sleep well under the same stars that guided their way across the endless grasslands, and dream of horizons that stretch endlessly toward new opportunities for those brave enough to pursue them. If this journey into the real American West has brought you comfort or inspiration, I'd be honored if you'd subscribe for more peaceful adventures through history's hidden truths. Next week, we'll explore the secret life of plague doctors, discovering the heroes who faced humanity's darkest hours with courage and dedication. Until then, sleep peacefully under the vast sky that still stretches over the lands these cowboys knew. And remember that every day offers new chances to build something meaningful through honest work and mutual respect. Good night, partner, and may your dreams carry you across rolling prairies toward your own horizon of possibility.